everybody. Nice to see you live here at Cafe CODA on beautiful Williamson Street. Welcome. I've been saying all the time. And human. We still don't know if it's lightning or blinging. I'm alone now. I know what it tastes like. So break me to small parts. Let go in small doses. But spare some for spare parts. There might be some good ones. Like you might make $1. I'm inside your mouth now, behind your tonsils, peeking over. Your car, I need your love, so won't you help a brother out? Won't you help a brother out? Won't you help a brother out, out? Just break me to small parts. Let go in small doses, but spare some for spare parts. You might make $1. Won't you help a brother out? Won't you hold out, out? Just break me to small parts. Let go in small doses. But spare some for spare parts. There might be some good ones. You might make $1. There might be some good ones. There might be some good ones. You might make $1. You might make $1. There might be some good ones. There might be some good ones. Thank you, and welcome to the Human Show. That first song that I played is Only Human by Lady Scissors. That's the theme song for this show. That's a band I play drums in usually. Open each show with another song related to the theme. So the theme today is Home Springs Eternal. So we have some very special guests. I want to welcome to the stage Gary Tipler, and we also have DaMontae January and Olivia Williams. And we're going to hear from each of them in turn, but also have some conversation. So we're going to learn some stuff about this neighborhood history. Our special guest later is Hannah John Taylor, being our very first feature in the piano recital feature. Just coming up. You can play whatever you want. And I'd like to ask you some questions about your neighborhood history. So we'll spend about an hour here together tonight, and thank you. I really appreciate your being here. Part of why I was really interested in hearing about neighborhood history, and partly because I love old photos, and I like to learn about this neighborhood. I've lived here in 1990, 1991, and to me, like, the neighborhood is all about neighborliness. I've benefited very much from that over time, and also a lot of aspects of the neighborhood just really replicate a lot of cycles we see all over of artists move in and then gentrification follows. The co-op develops and gentrification follows. So we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the dynamics and learn some about the neighborhood. So first, Gary, will you tell us about yourself and then start sharing some slides and history with us?
Sure. My name is Gary Tipler. I've been keenly interested in this neighborhood for a long time, almost all the years I've been in Madison, but my application to move into the neighborhood was never approved, so I did it anyway about 22 years ago, part of the Defiance thing, and had been involved since the 70s, really, and was always amazed to see how things changed the sense of community and the development of new institutions in the 1970s and 80s and 90s. Just really amazed me. The sense of community that is so varied and almost inexplicable and magical at the same time still has me in awe sometimes, and I love what comes of it. So with that, I can begin. My interest in historic preservation and history dated from the time that I was working as a child in a sandbox, to be honest, and discovering ways of putting things together that I really enjoyed. And if we're ready for the slideshow, then we can launch into that. One of the things that I noticed when I first came to Madison was the wonderment of buildings of so many different kinds. I'm from the Fox Valley and Neenah, and I always had my face pressed against glass as we were driving from one city to the other, looking at the 2- and 3-story buildings. But in Wisconsin, or in Madison, there were so many more things to learn, and I've enjoyed the learning, the research about almost many aspects of this. When I first came into the neighborhood as a resident or as a community involvement person, I worked at first for Nature's Bakery. And that was my introduction to the neighborhood. I walked over one day while the yeast was rising. We were in the place where Mother Fools is now. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and walked over to Spade Street and saw a big hole in the ground where a house had been torn down and a new apartment building was about to be built. My research was then focused during my school years on this neighborhood. Even though I didn't live in it, I was interested in to see that there was some movement towards renovating old buildings. But people were looking aside from Williamson Street, so I focused my interest on Williamson Street and found, in fact, that there were a number of buildings of interest along the street that were worthy of preservation, and I convincingly made a pitch for preserving them all. If we could, I'll go through them, and I'll give a little hand signal to the next. This is Anita Digney, who had grown up and was still living in the house where there's now a tavern next to Grandpa's. And this is her as a little girl before the other houses were built, even before Ace Hardware was built, looking over to the apartment building that MDC renovated that is still there, the one with the iron fence in front of it, built as a mansion on the edge of town in the 1850s, but served as the office building for Northern Electrical Company, which occupied a large complex of buildings torn down just a few years ago for the State Historical Archive. I'm ready for the next. This is a view of the neighborhood from the Capitol, the top of the Capitol Rotunda, and you can see the linear development up across the left-hand upper along Williamson Street and both sides. You see almost no development beyond that because this was the Great Marsh, and that land was slowly filled and used for industrial use. But Williamson Street had its share of industry as well. Next. This is a view from the top of King Street, above King Street, looking across King Street. That's what these stone buildings are. A few of them remain, though it's 2-story or maybe a 3-story building. Then you can see down Williamson Street, which is prominently turning towards your left. You see a large octagonal house on the right, built by Leonard Farwell. He was there for less than a year, and the financial panic of 1857 took him out. But he was the one who planted street trees in all the streets on the east side of town, and would meet people at the depot and encourage them to stay in Madison and make their fortunes here. Next, please. A view from the Soldiers' Orphans Home, also the Soldiers' Hospital, Civil War Soldiers' Hospital, which stood on the 900 block of Spade Street, looking back towards town. You see that there's an assortment of smaller buildings along Spade Street. B.B. Clark Park was built out of dust, practically. It doesn't show in this picture at all. The street falls away, but you see a little bit of Jennifer Street, and you can't really make out Williamson over the hill, but it's there. You see a little bit of end industry along the 600 block of Williamson. Next. So why did Madison grow? There were the boom years of the 1860s and 70s, and particularly the 80s, 90s, and aughts. It was for a couple of reasons. Madison was at the northwest, part of the Northwest Territory area, serving industries in the Northwest, the expanding farmlands in the Dakotas and further west. And agriculture was a big deal. At the University of Wisconsin, this is where there was a lot of research and development. Next. And thus the fanning of the railroads from Madison. There were 9 rails coming into and out of Madison. So you had a lot of railroad people living in this neighborhood. This is the bridge crew provided by Robert Kilgore. Next. The rails provided access to these companies that wholesale farm machinery, such as this, which was renovated just a few years ago along the tracks, along the bike path now, and before it was expanded. Next. And then you'd hardly imagine it, but this is the 600 block of Williamson Street looking at the Capitol. Houck's general store is on the right, which would be where the little slip of a park is today. The Blair Street Garden. Essen House would be a building in the middle of the picture, and to the right, the little red brick house was the Essen House, the original German house. And then the Milwaukee Road's first station in the middle, what appears to be the middle of the road as Williamson Street, was later extended to East Wilson. Next. Among the early industries was Fauerbach's Brewery, originally Specker's Brewery, on the location of the Fauerbach apartments, or condos rather, at the end of the 600 block of Williamson Street. Has generously made large collections available to a number of people. This is the horse-drawn era. Next. As you can see here, local delivery was a big deal. Next. And the Fauerbach complex from the lakeside, but also showing the importance of. This is probably taken 4 Fauerbachs, so that's probably a Fauerbach boat, and